The grid dies in January and the cold moves in like it owns the place, because it does now. Your apartment, your insulated modern box that kept you comfortable through every winter of your life, drops 10 degrees in the first hour, 20 degrees by hour 3. By morning, you can see your breath indoors, and the pipes are starting to freeze and crack and burst, flooding apartments with water that turns to ice on the floor. And you realize that everything you thought protected you was just a comfortable lie powered by electricity. Fire won't save you. That's the lie everyone believes until they try it and learn the hard way. You light a fire in your apartment, the smoke fills the space first, then it seeps out windows, vents, cracks, and doors. Smoke is a signal visible for blocks, and in a city where the power is gone and resources are scarce and people are desperate, smoke tells everyone exactly where you are and that you have something worth protecting. Your neighbor 3 floors down sees the smoke. He's been freezing for 4 days. His kids are crying from the cold.
He knows you have heat, which means you have supplies, and he's coming with 2 friends who are just as cold and just as desperate and significantly less concerned about your property rights than they were when society was functioning. The light from fire is even worse. At night, when the city's completely dark, when every window is black except yours, a fire glows like a fucking beacon, advertising your location to anyone looking for an easy target. And the wood runs out faster than you think. You burn firewood, then furniture, then books, then picture frames, then you're ripping up floorboards, and eventually you run out of things to burn and you're back to freezing, but now everyone knows where you live and that you had resources worth defending. But your body is a furnace that runs on spite and calories and the sheer biological imperative to not die. It generates heat constantly, approximately 100 watts at rest, more when you move. You are a 100-watt heater wrapped in meat. The problem isn't heat generation. The problem is heat retention.
Your body is producing plenty of warmth. You're just hemorrhaging it into an environment that's bleeding you dry degree by degree. And if you don't fix the leak in the furnace runs until it runs out of fuel, and then you're just an expensive corpse in an apartment that's now available for rent. So you don't fight the cold with fire. You fight it with insulation, with layers, with understanding that you are the heat source and everything else is just about trapping that heat before it escapes. Start with your core, chest, abdomen, the vital organs that shut down when they get too cold and stop doing the things that keep you alive. Multiple layers, and absolutely not cotton. Cotton kills in cold weather because it absorbs moisture and then conducts heat away from your body like it's actively trying to murder you. Wool, synthetic materials, anything that insulates when wet. If you don't have proper cold weather gear, you use what you have. T-shirts layered under sweatshirts under jackets. Newspaper stuffed between layers is insulation because air gaps matter and dignity doesn't. Plastic bags wrapped around your torso under clothes to trap heat and block wind. It looks stupid. Looking stupid is not a leading cause of death. Hypothermia is, and it doesn't care about your fashion sense. Your head loses roughly 10% of your body heat, which is significant when you're operating on a tight thermal budget. Your hands and feet, the extremities, those are the first things your body sacrifices when core temperature drops. It's not personal, it's triage. Your body will let your fingers and toes die from frostbite to keep your brain and heart running, because evolution prioritized survival over having all 10 fingers. Hats, gloves, multiple pairs of socks. If you don't have these, you improvise. Beanies made from cut-up sweaters, gloves made from socks. More socks over your regular socks. Plastic bags over your socks inside your shoes to block moisture and add an air layer for insulation. You look like a homeless person wrapped in garbage bags. Congratulations, you're warm and alive, which is more than the guy who froze to death with his dignity intact. Now the space. You can't heat an entire apartment without power, without fire, without alerting everyone in the building that you're still here and probably have supplies worth taking. But you can heat a small space with nothing but your body. Pick one room, preferably interior with no exterior walls. A bathroom, a walk-in closet, a small bedroom. The smaller the space, the less heat required to warm it, and your body is the only heater you have that doesn't announce your presence. Seal it completely. Towels under the door. Blankets over windows, if there are any. Plastic sheeting taped over vents. Duct tape around door frames. You're creating a microclimate, a tiny, survivable environment where your body heat can accumulate instead of dissipating into the frozen wasteland that used to be your apartment. In a small, properly sealed room, your body heat plus one other person can raise the temperature 10 to 15 degrees over a few hours. That's the difference between dangerous cold and survivable cold, between making it through the night and becoming the cautionary tale your neighbors reference when they're trying to decide whether to light a fire. Sleep setup is critical, and most people get it catastrophically wrong. You don't sleep on a bed. The mattress is a giant heat sink, pulling warmth away from your body into its massive springs and foam. You sleep on the floor with insulation under you. Yoga mats, folded blankets, cardboard, newspaper, anything that creates an air gap between you and the floor that's trying to suck the heat out of your body. Cold rises from below just as much as it falls from above, and the floor is competing with the air for which can kill you faster.
Then you create a nest. Sleeping bags if you have them, layered blankets if you don't, and you get inside this nest with all your clothes on, fully dressed, layered, with your hat and gloves on, because your body generates significantly less heat when you sleep and you need every advantage. Not naked, not in light clothing, the strip down and share body heat advice works in specific survival scenarios and will freeze you solid in this one because you're not generating enough heat to warm another person when you're unconscious. Multiple people together generate more heat and lose it slower. Body heat stocking. 2 people in a small sealed room with proper insulation under and over them can maintain survivable temperatures indefinitely as long as they have calories to burn. 3 people is even better. 4 starts getting crowded, but the thermal advantage is real. This is the only time in your adult life where sleeping in a pile with other humans is a survival necessity instead of weird. Which brings us to the fuel that runs your personal furnace. Food is heat.
Your body converts calories to warmth through metabolism, and in extreme cold, you're burning calories 20 to 30% faster than normal, just maintaining core temperature. You need to eat more, not less, and you need calorie-dense food. Fats are ideal. Oils, nuts, peanut butter, cheese, if you have it and it hasn't frozen solid. Carbohydrates burn hot and fast. Proteins burn slower. You want to mix, but the priority is calories in, heat out. Skipping meals to conserve food in extreme cold is choosing hypothermia over hunger, and hypothermia kills you in days while starvation takes weeks. The math is simple. Water is non-negotiable. Dehydration makes you colder because your blood thickens and circulates poorly, and your body has less fluid to carry heat to extremities. Your fingers and toes go numb faster. Your brain works slower. You need water even when you're not thirsty, especially when you're not thirsty, because cold suppresses thirst response and you can dehydrate without realizing it. But water freezes, and drinking ice-cold water forces your body to spend precious calories heating it to body temperature. If you have any way to warm water without creating visible smoke, do it. If not, you keep water bottles inside your clothing layers against your core where your body heat keeps them liquid. Or you melt ice and snow using body heat and a bottle tucked under your armpit. It's slow and deeply uncomfortable and absolutely necessary. Movement generates heat, but also burns calories and creates sweat. And sweat in cold weather is how you die, stupid. Moisture against your skin conducts heat away exponentially faster than dry skin, 25 times faster when wet. You move enough to stay warm, but not enough to sweat. If you start sweating, you stop immediately, you ventilate your layers, you let the moisture evaporate before it soaks your base layer and turns your clothing into a heat-extracting mechanism. Sweating yourself warm sounds logical and will kill you as surely as anything else on this list. Here's what actually kills people who think they're prepared. They survive the first night, the first week even, and then they make mistakes based on optimism and exhaustion. They assume the power will come back on soon. They assume help is coming. They start rationing calories too aggressively because surely this can't last, and their body temperature drops a degree, then 2. And they don't notice because hypothermia is subtle until it isn't. They get comfortable with the cold and stop maintaining their insulation systems because they're tired and cold and everything is hard. They light a small fire just this once because they're so desperately cold and so tired of being cold, and the smoke brings visitors. The visitors knock first. Then they knock harder. Then they stop knocking and start breaking the door because they know you're in there and they're cold too, and their need is just as valid as yours, except there are more of them.
Maybe you fight, maybe you don't. But either way, your sealed, warm room is compromised. Your supplies are gone or shared, and your careful survival plan is over because you got cold and made a decision that felt right for 10 minutes and was fatal in the long run. The cold is patient. It doesn't kill you in an hour like a bullet or minutes like drowning. It kills you in degrees, in small losses of body heat that accumulate, in decisions that seem fine until they're not. First, you shiver uncontrollably. That's your body trying to generate heat through rapid muscle movement, burning calories fast to produce warmth. Then the shivering stops, which feels like relief, but is actually much worse, because it means your body doesn't have energy to shiver anymore. Your core temperature is below 90 degrees now and dropping. Confusion sets in. Poor judgment. The overwhelming desire to remove clothing because your malfunctioning brain is convinced you're hot when you're actually freezing to death. This is called paradoxical undressing, and it's one of the last things you do before you die. They find people naked in the snow, clothes in a pile nearby, because their brain short-circuited and told them they were overheating when their core temperature was 85 degrees and falling. Then you stop moving, stop caring. You find a corner, curl up, and you die quietly, while your neighbor in the sealed room with proper insulation and layers and no fire survives another week because they understood the rules and followed them even when it was uncomfortable. The people who survive extreme cold without power aren't the ones with the most supplies or the best gear. They're the ones who understand they are the heat source, and everything else is just keeping that heat from escaping. They're the ones who create small, sealed, insulated spaces instead of trying to heat large areas. They're the ones who layer properly, eat enough, stay hydrated, avoid sweat, and resist the temptation to light fires that solve one problem while creating worse ones.
You don't need special equipment. You need knowledge and the discipline to implement it when you're cold and miserable and your brain is begging you to just light a small fire, just this once, just to feel warm for a few minutes. That fire is a signal you can't take back. That smoke tells everyone where you are. That light makes you a target. Your body generates 100 watts of heat for free and in silence. Everything else is just insulation and patience and the understanding that sometimes survival means being uncomfortable in the dark while staying warm enough and invisible enough to outlast the system failure and the people who didn't plan as well. The grid is gone. The cold is here and it's not leaving. Your body is the furnace. Feed it, insulate it, keep it dry, keep it hidden. Fire is tempting, fire is dangerous, fire is a decision you make once and regret for however long you have left. When the cold comes and the power doesn't, the people who make it through aren't the ones with fireplaces and visible smoke. They're the ones who learned to be their own heat source and had the discipline to stay invisible while doing it, even when everything in them wanted to burn something, anything, just to feel warm again.